So, welcome everyone to the Community Arts Impact Panelist Orientation. Our panelists are the heart of what we do, and Theron's been a panelist before on the Cultural Development Grant, but not for this one, and you're a first-time panelist, Dontavius. First of all, I want to give you guys both a little background as to where this grant came from. It was not in existence the first year of just the nonprofit CAIG was 2019, whereas the cultural development grants have been going on for years and years and years. The catalyst for this was we did a strategic plan in 2017 and sort of which started the path that we're still on towards cultural equity. And we made that a goal of that plan. Now we have a new plan with even more emphasis on it. But because of that plan, the county wanted to redo our contract and develop a new grant that would reach out more broadly to the community, that would be open to any nonprofit, not just arts organizations, for projects of a cultural nature. There was also a great deal of intentionality as to making this a somewhat easier grant to apply for, sort of a gateway grant to help teach organizations grant-making skills, and to make it accessible for small emerging organizations that are all volunteer with no staff. So that was basically written into the contract. Also in the contract that year, the county eliminated colleges and universities from the cultural development grant because they didn't think they should be giving general support to colleges and universities, whereas CAIG is project support. So the following year in 2019, they decided to do a separate division of this grant for colleges and universities so that they had a way, but project support. And the focus in the guidelines is very clearly on the colleges and universities, their impact and outreach to the community. This grant was not supposed to benefit students specifically, although they can certainly be involved in the process. So both of these grants under the CAIG are very much about grassroots outreach to the community. And I will tell you, since we first started in 2019, the first CAIG, we've had some fascinating projects. And I think that the grant has really fulfilled. I'm thinking about Eileen, the one, the South Shore Arts Council. We're doing the bikes for the kids in the immigrant kids, and doing custom bikes and teaching them welding skills and all these skills. They're work related while they were fixing them bikes, which they actually needed for transportation. So, you know, those are the sort of innovative projects that have come out of this. So that's good. This year, we changed the scoring rubric a little bit to better align with our new strategic plan, with more emphasis on the community outreach and not as much on artistic quality, although there is a score for that, because we really think, hence the name, it's that outreach to the community that is most significant on this. So Eileen, why don't you share your screen? Eileen's done us a nice little PowerPoint, and we're going to add to it as we go along now that we've given you the background. Okay, next slide. So this is kind of what for the nonprofits, again, it's an opportunity to make cultural opportunities more accessible for underserved populations and with great diversity. Any nonprofit can apply, so it could be a Boys and Girls Club. We've had an animal shelter apply, any nonprofit, but the project itself has to have a arts and cultural tie-in. The maximum funding award is $5,000. And the first year, there is no match. Subsequent years, it's on a sliding scale. So if an organization gets it for 4 years in a row, then that fourth year, there would be a match. But again, we're trying to ease people into the swimming pool with this. If they haven't applied for a grant before, so the first year, they don't have to worry about a match, and we kind of train them on grant writing while we're doing this. Next slide. So these are the things that you will be scoring on. And again, access and community engagement is the highest score. We want to see how they are relating to the community. Some of the questions you'll see on the grant is, who was involved in your planning project for the community? Who is your target audience? Who are you trying to reach? We're trying to get them to put a lot of thought on the front end. Artistic and cultural vibrancy is not as large a score. And then we have organizational capacity, which is their business model, how effective they are in running their business. A minimum score of 75 or above is needed to receive funding. Now, for cultural development grants, it's a little bit higher bar. You have to get 80. But for this grant, it's 75 or above. Next slide. So for the higher education, colleges and universities, again, we're trying to make arts and cultural opportunities more accessible for underserved populations. The goals are very similar between the two. Only colleges, universities with headquarters located in Hillsborough County may apply. Again, this is project funding. The maximum funding award is $12,500. There is a total of $50,000 allocated by the county for this. So if you had more applicants, the top scoring applicants would get the first part of the money, and then when we hit $50,000, the money would stop. So if there was an applicant that had applied for 12.5 and there was maybe only 7,000 left in the pot, they would get the 7,000, but anyone that scored lower. So it's in a descending order of scores. And no match is required for this one. Next. The scoring is the same, and that's different. Last year, there were two different separate scoring things for colleges and university and for the other. And I thought it made life for the panelists way too difficult because we're trying to achieve sort of the same thing. So some of the questions in the application are a little more specific with the colleges and educations, but the same categories apply for access and community engagement, artistic and cultural vibrancy, and organizational capacity. And again, a minimum score of 75 is needed in order to receive funding. So when we had our grant workshop for this grant, as you can imagine, people are still coming out of the pandemic. And we like to tell the panelists, you know, we understand that some of these organizations, they're making their best guess about what the next year holds. So there are going to be more virtual exhibitions and performances, some budgets. You may see changes from the previous year, but we just ask them to do their best for now. We have, over the past 2 years with our grantees, if something came up where they couldn't exactly do the project as they intended, we have a change request form, and we will work with them to find a way to still get their money, still achieve the objectives that the panel scored on, but possibly with a modification here or there. We want them to get their money, and it's still, even though it's better than it was last year, there's still a lot of uncertainty there, and I'm sure you can attest to that. It's challenging to make plans, isn't it?
Yes, especially because you know if you're trying to do something in person, other folks may still be hesitant to physically show up. So I know I've seen some of them in March, I think, and even with the Lady Havana and Stageworks, they were doing this thing where you could sort of purchase a virtual ticket if you wanted. or purchase an in-person ticket. And, you know, it was like this weird hodgepodge mix of some people still only wanting to look at it online. And so it is still strange for sure, but, you know, there's nothing like an in-person event.
I think that hybrid model, some virtual, some not, is going to be with us for a while to come. But as panelists, you know, we like to make sure everyone is aware that this is a difficult time to even write a grant application and to plan what you're going to do, and just keep that in mind when you're reviewing the applications. Next, Eileen. So now we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of the online grant system. And this is where I turn it over to Eileen, because since we no longer have Joe as our expert, Eileen has seized the mantle of being the online grant expert. So she can answer questions that you come up with while you're reviewing, but she's going to give you a little bit of information about the online grant system overall.
Yeah, it's honestly not that complicated, but so this is basically what you'll see when you get in. There's the link, and I can send that to you guys when I send you the YouTube video clip of this as well, just so you have something you can click easily. But basically, you're just going to need to, if you are not already in the grant system, you should have received an invitation from me today to help give you access and get registered in the grant system. So when you're logging in, usually you should see the little portal like this. You can just log in like you do with almost everything else, you know, email, password, pretty straightforward. You, depending on if you've been an applicant before, may see a button that also says applicant, but for our purposes of what we're doing right now, you're just going to want to hit this green one that says reviewer. When you get in, you'll see that there are some basic information and tips at the very top of the screen, but you'll also see yours will not say staff review. Obviously, it will say panel review. And you'll see that there will be 18 applications. Your deadline will also be slightly different because it will be the deadline for the panel review, but this is basically what you'll see, and you can just hit this start button to move on. When you have completed reviews, you'll see a fully green check mark that look like these. So I just wanted you to see, you'll sort of have the list when you first get in there. It won't have this green check mark, it'll be hollow. When you have completed everything, you will see these. And this is sort of the basically how you'll review the information is you'll have the summary and the application. You actually start off on summary, so you're going to want to click over on the word application, and then you'll be able to scroll up and down on this left panel, see every part of the application, read all of the information, and on the right, you'll have this section that says your review, and you'll be able to give your score for each section and provide any comments as needed. So that's how you'll basically go through the process there. If you, for some reason, feel you have a conflict of interest, you can mark yourself as having a conflict of interest. Martine, that might be a good time for you just to chime in and explain exactly what qualifies as conflict.
So a conflict of interest from our standpoint, you know, in a community this size, everybody knows everybody. It's not that you know these people. It's, have you been in a position to get economic benefit? Have you been a consultant for them? Have you done work for them? That would probably, if it's happened recently in the last year or two, be a conflict of interest. If it happened 10 years ago, it isn't any longer. So we just, if you have any questions about what might be a conflict of interest, feel free to reach out to me. If you decide that you do have a conflict of interest, in addition to checking this box, please let us know, because we do a first reader in the grant process, and we wouldn't want to, if you have a conflict of interest, you'll be there through the whole process. You'll just recuse yourself when that particular application comes up. But we need to know in advance so we don't have you being a first reader for someone that you might have a conflict with. Most of the time when people call me about a conflict of interest, it really doesn't meet the criteria, but sometimes it does, and it's important to take a look at that.
Yes, so we'll deal with that, and but just so you know, this flag is here, so if something truly is a conflict, you can mark it in here so that it acknowledges that you are not reviewing that application in the system for a reason, so that eventually you'll get this notification that you've completed all of your signed applications. So I mean, that's the basics, nuts and bolts, and you'll have until July 16th at 5 p.m. to wrap this all up. And like I said, I'll send you guys this link just to make it something easy you can click on along with the recording. I will say that randomly last time we were doing the panel review process, Georgia alone couldn't see the applications for the morning that it had opened. So occasionally something odd happens. I moved her back and forth in the system and all of a sudden she could see everything. So if anything weird happens, always just feel like you can shoot me an email. I can probably figure it out pretty quickly. But every now and then some little glitch will come up.
And I thought too,
So
I couldn't remember, but isn't there a way though that you can, the ones that you scored, you can download your result or what you did? I thought there was a download the application thing.
So it's not like a download an application thing that I'm aware of, but we will send you the your score sheets with your comments. Okay. So maybe that's what you're remembering is being sent your comments. Mm-hmm. So you will get what numbers you selected, comments that you made.
Okay.
So after we hear about your conflict of interest today, if you will let us know if you have any, then we're going to do a first reader list to send to you. We'll open up the grant system tomorrow, and the first reader, that just means you do more of a deep dive into that organization and you will start the conversation about who they are, what they do, and we rotate. These are randomly assigned to all the panelists. To your point, Theron, there is no way to save those comments. We recommend that you just make notes for yourself. You'll have 3 or 4 first reader assignments. Every time we do this, someone thinks that they're going to have access to that through the grant system. This is just your notes. Same thing when I did the state grant last year. I kept those comments sort of to the side. So the other thing, Eileen, they can go through and score, but not finalize their score, can't they?
You can choose not to finalize your score if you want to. I mean, obviously, before we do the full meeting, you'll have to finalize your score. But if you want to go back in and move things around or think about something for a little while, you have almost 2 or 3 weeks to think about these. So you certainly don't have to make the decision immediately when you sit down and start doing this. And yeah, to Martine's point, once these applications are completed, there really isn't a good way for us to give you access to them again. So any notes you want to take about how they look would be very good to have.
And I don't mean that you guys necessarily have to do it this way, but I always find when I'm a panelist, as I go through the first grant, as you look at more and more of them, your attitude about what is a high score and a low score may shift the more that you see, or the different budget sizes. So I always like to do a preliminary scoring and step away for a day or so and go back and go, oh, I scored them too high. I scored them too low, and before I finalize. But once you finalize, that opportunity is lost. So that's just something to think about. However it works best for you is fine, but once you finalize it, it's pretty much final. So just be aware of that. And what other helpful tips have we given in the past, Eileen? Anything else you can think of?
Well, I was going to ask.
I think that's the biggest one.
It said 18, but so how many applicants did you get? Did you guys get a bit? I'm assuming because it's after the pandemic, maybe you had more than prior years, or?
So yes and no. I mean, 18 is the total of people who submitted. We had another, I think it was 14 or 15 people in the grant system who started applications and just didn't finish them. And I don't really know why, because they got multiple reminders, but
a couple of them were disqualified. They reached out to us, and it turns out they got other county funding, and that is a disqualifier for this. We do have some new applicants though this year, don't we?
yes, we do. Actually, we had a couple that I thought were like really interesting. And one of the ones who didn't finish an application, I honestly thought they were so cool. So maybe they'll apply again in the future. But one of the ones that I'm just remembering offhand is there's this place that I thought sounded very interesting called Project Return, and they work with adults who've been disabled by mental illness, and they offer a variety of programs, and they are trying to do an art project for these adults who are like coming back from, you know, things that they've struggled with. So there are definitely some new, and there's a new Valrico players. I think I'm saying their name slightly wrong, but there's a new theater group in there that I'd never heard of. There definitely are some new interesting folks in there that seem like they're doing some good stuff. But yeah, for some reason we didn't complete the grant application.
One of the more interesting organizations is actually based in Pinellas County, and that's an eligibility issue. So I counseled them if they can relocate and make their major permanent address Hillsborough County, we'd love to see their application next year because they're obviously doing wonderful things. But that's why we have staff review for a week after these things come through. We've got every application you're looking at should be eligible and should have checked all the boxes and be complete. So you don't get the ones that aren't.
Because this is for Hillsborough, and Pinellas has their own kind of, don't they, Martine? They've got their own sort of, if that Pinellas, yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, creative. Yes, they do have over in Pinellas County, but actually they're more focused on individual artist grants than they are organizational grants. So our organizations in Hillsborough County may not always realize how fortunate they are that the county provides organizational support as well as individual artist support. But we spend a lot of time working and counseling our applicants when they're in the application process, especially the week that they're due. Eileen and I both were quite busy, but we do a lot of hand holding and we try and make it as easy as possible because, again, this grant, even more so than the cultural development grant, may be first time grant writers and very small, all volunteer organizations. And we really try and go the extra mile to support them in the application process. Eileen, you said we have 18 applications. How about colleges and universities? We have 3, right? Or is that included in
that are the colleges and universities specifically? So I was just thinking of the nonprofits alone when I said that. So I guess it's really like 21.
Okay, but still, that's that's a good number. I'm just surprised that you had, like, what you said, Eileen, that there were so many that didn't finish if they were partially either disqualified or that they didn't finish. So I'd have thought you'd had fewer folks that didn't finish if they were eligible. So
we do communicate with them and send multiple reminders. This is the last week. If you have questions, sometimes people just, run out of time and they can't make the deadline. The deadline is firm. Nobody gets an extension. So we have to kind of hold their feet to the fire on that. But every other way, we certainly try and help them as much as possible. So it will be open tomorrow morning so that you can go in and noodle around. And if you will, if you don't have a conflict of interest, you don't need to say anything else today to me. But if you do, let me know. And we're going to go ahead and put together a first reader listing to send out to you and get that to you as well.
Okay.
Anything else that we haven't touched upon? I think we've got a great little panel. Besides the two of you, we've got Megan and Georgia and Bob Terry. And I think it will be 5 is a really good number. We have 5 for community cultural development grants. This is new, having a panel of board members, but because that's going to be sort of mandated with the new ordinance, and we're going to be more in line with the Cultural Assets Commission of the county. When I spoke to Lindsay, we thought it made much more sense to go ahead and transition to the board panel rather than soliciting volunteers that we won't really need after this year. You know, I hate for someone to volunteer for something and then not be able to use them. I think that sends a bad message. So Lindsay thought it was great to transition. So over time, I'm really excited about this because all of our board members will be experienced panelists. And I think we'll just have sort of an institutional knowledge that kind of permeates through the whole process. And I like the idea of board members being more connected with really the primary mission of the organization, which is helping organizations and artists in the community. So thank you both so much for agreeing to be on the panel.
Sure.
And don't hesitate to reach out to Eileen and me with any questions. We've got the online grant system link. We've got the contact arts at Hillsborough County, but you know our email addresses. You can just go right to the horse's mouth and we will make sure we get you a fast answer. But look for, Dontavius, do you know if you got your online grant link today?
Yeah,
that Eileen said?
Yeah, I signed up right before I got on the call.
Okay, perfect. And you were already in the system, Darren. So,
Yes.
So the next thing you'll be getting from us will be the first reader listing, a little more information about what being a first reader entails, and then have at it. And it's all yours until July 16th when you submit them to us. I told you it wouldn't take an hour.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Thanks for asking us to do this, Martine.
Yes.
Oh, no, I think you're going to enjoy it, Dontavius. I always enjoy watching first-time panelists really get into it. Okay, well, thank you so much, guys.
You're welcome. Have a good day.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.